If how the House Sparks at Twitch TV, if they're on, we'll raid them if we get anybody. Is that okay?
Are we following him on our channel?
Are we? I don't know. I can't get on
Never
our
heard of him,
channel.
so
I guess not. So I guess we should follow them. I'll figure out how to get on and do that later.
let me log in as us, and then I'll
Okay.
be able to do that. If it lets me log in would be great. Hearsay. Boink. Okay, what was their name?
Hal Sparks.
L. What is it?
Hal.
Is one?
HAL.
Okay, I see it. Live. I'll follow. And then I'll go back to our channel so I can make sure we're live. All right. All right. Did you share in the places?
I did share in the places, yes. I did share in the places.
All right. Well, then I won't bother.
Okay. I don't know why you're so quiet. I have your volume turned all the way up.
I'm speaking quietly.
Oh, okay.
Probably all it is. Um, yeah, I can check our levels in the thing. Yeah, it
Okay.
looks fine. When I'm speaking up, I'll be fine.
Okay.
I'm just
All right.
really tired. I was having a good pain day,
Right.
and I kind of overdid it a little.
Mm,
So I'm tired now.
I get you. I understand. I'm trying to reset my clock, and that's for my sleeping because it got all wonky, and that's not been fun. So, all right. Ready when you are.
All right.
Devil is amongst us. Stay back, boy. This calls for divine intervention. I kick ass for the Lord.
You shall not oppress a hired servant who is poor and needy, whether he is one of your brothers or one of the sojourners who are in your land within your towns. Deuteronomy 24:14.
Everyone talks about building a relationship with your customer. I think you build one with your employees first. Angela Ahrens, Senior Vice President of Apple. Let's talk about Activision Blizzard.
Welcome to Heresy and Hearsay, a podcast reclaiming faith in the context of political discussions. I'm Reverend Barney, and you can follow me at Sethroth II, and you can follow the show Twitter by just looking for Heresy and Hearsay. Heresy and Hearsay has a Patreon site that you can find by going to patreon.com/heresy and hearsay, where you can find our past shows and a way to help us. Just $2 a month goes a long way to helping us make this humble show. And with me, my co-host this week, September.
Hi, I'm September, or 9 of 12, and you can follow me on Twitch and Twitter at 9 of 12. I'm also a co host of the Geek Grills podcast. Welcome to our Twitch channel, and you can contribute here with bits or subscribe. If you have Amazon Prime, that's free. You can follow the show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and any podcast catcher. Just look for Heresy and Hearsay. Now, please like, share, follow, subscribe, all of that stuff, and give us a review. That helps others find us. We also have a website where you can listen to our past shows as well as find bios about each of us at heresyandhearsay.com.
So before we get into this week's topic, which is going to be quite heavy, and I do want to give a content slash trigger warning. This is going to be quite heavy. It's going to contain discussions of sexual harassment, sexual abuse, suicide, and just general abuse. So if you are not comfortable listening to that, you might want to skip this show. But I just wanted to, give you that warning heads up. Before we get into that, however, I thought because we've been kind of mired in this, we would do our normal mental health check. So, what have you been doing to stay mentally healthy?
Fine. Everything's fine. Actually, d- immersing myself in the podcasting is part of it. I had some really good shows. I was a guest on a show
Okay,
called Wait You Haven't Seen that TV's Travis does, talking about a Nick Cage movie. And Geek Grills this week had Hammond Chamberlain on, and that was really, it was exciting. We haven't had a guest in a really long time.
right.
And he's also like an editor and a producer, so it was a really great conversation. So that's really helped me.
Okay.
Just feel like I'm good at this. I shouldn't just throw it away and give up, which, sometimes I get some imposter syndrome and want to do that. So,
No, I can completely understand that, and you really are good. I've listened to the last few episodes of the show, and they've been really good and very, especially last week's, but I also listened to this week, and I think there's some things that I can learn from this week's show. So, um, I decided that I was going to finish the original Dragonlance stories, the three autumn, twilight, winter, and spring dawning. Those three books. I have never read them, even though I'm a D&D geek. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit down and read these, and I did. And I got to the end, and it was quite enjoyable. And I was glad to get that off my plate of books that I've been wanting to read and haven't. And then I said, you know what? I feel like reading The Stand again. And I started reading The Stand, and it's like, you know what? This is too close to what's really happening.
right?
I'm
Why
going to
would you
close
read The
it.
Stand right now?
I go close this book and put it away again. It's like that was
Go back
a
to Kryn.
mistake. Yeah, it's like, well, the next set of books for Kryn is about the twins, and I never understood the fascination with wrestling, the mage. I've never understood that fascination with the twins, and that's what the next set of heavy books are. Is the trial of the twins, and I'm like, I really don't care. I really don't, because
Well, if
I
you
never
read them,
like,
maybe you would.
huh?
Well, if you read those, maybe you would understand it better. I mean, Raceland is fascinating in that, for those of you that don't know, he's cursed and he's got hourglass shaped eyes, but he sees like entropy, sees everything dying, and that's really explains a lot of his choices and his personality.
Well, yeah, I guess he just always, from way they talked about him in the original trilogy, it just sounds like he's always been this kind of cocky, power hungry individual to begin with that nobody really liked. They only had him tag along because he was, the twins weren't going to ever be separated. It was kind of, that's the feel I got from it. And I'm like, well, that's not a dynamic I really want to pursue further. At the end, it was a
I
little.
maintain that you would understand it better because with the history of and points of view of the brothers themselves,
Well,
it's
I will take that, and I will probably in that case go back to Kryn and read those because I have them. So yeah, I guess I should sit down and read them. The Trial of the Brothers, and see how that may change my opinion. So,
I
but
mean, I also thought Cameron was kind of a useless oaf, but it was I'm
the
really glad I
and
liked
I
him.
just thought he was just. I didn't think it was useless. I just thought he was like
Boring.
he was a little boring, but he was also like, he was put upon because because he loved his brother so much that he was kind of blind to everything that his brother was actual, and that that's an interesting dynamic, and
Hmm.
I like that bit of the dynamic, that he was blind to his brother's nature because he loved him so much and wanted to take care of him no matter what. And what I found interesting was their older sister just being straight up. evil and wrong. And I'm just like, oh boy. She was like a trip. And I'm like, wow. I was waiting for her to show up in the story. And I'm like, oh boy. She even has like a death knight wrapped around her fingers. She's someone I don't want to mess
It's a
with
piece of
ever.
work. Yeah.
So, right. So, before we get into this week's topic, Brother Bowie, can you lead us in a word of prayer?
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
So, this week's, I also wanted to note that I will be giving money to the RAIN, RAINN, and if you would like to give money, you can go to rain.org and give them money that way. They've been an organization that I've given money quite often to, and they've always been, ever since the early '90s, they've been a group that I've been big proponent of, and with
I thought
the
of
top.
you when Scott Johnson put out his No Way Home Broken Hearthstone shirt.
Mhm.
Rain was one of the organizations that benefits.
Right.
And I was like, oh, Barney's going to love that.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh, that's great. And here's the thing. I just read a tweet from him, um, and it's a little sad that this has kind of changed his perspective on people. He said when he was younger, he used to believe that there was good in everybody, and he's got a little bit older. It's like almost everybody is has good in them, and it's like after this, it's like after everything that's been going on, it's like he says now I just believe that some people have good in them, and that's
Mm.
really sad. So that's that's part of and for those who don't know, Scott Johnson, he's a big he was one of the first podcasters I listened to with his show about World of Warcraft called The Instance, and he's got this big podcasting empire, I would say, called Frog Pants, and so it kind of ties into this whole Blizzard thing that we're going to be discussing. For those that don't know, so I guess we'll jump right into it. For those who don't know, the California uh, Fair Housing and Employment Agency filed suit. I want to say about 3 weeks now. Filed suit. No, it's only been two. Jeez, there's been so much news. Filed a suit against um, Activision Blizzard for their I don't want to say frat boy because that makes it sound like it's juvenile and these are grown individuals. But basically
Well, the
this
behavior was certainly juvenile.
yes, yeah, or worse. But it's basically this the they had bad practices when it comes to hiring females and minorities. They with like only 20% of the staff being females. They also were a lot of sexual harassment, sexual abuse allegations came through. They talked about how in 2013 everybody that a group of the higher ups got this suite and called it the Cosby Suite, and that's just disconcerting to say the least. But they did a 2-year investigation, and then they filed a lawsuit against them to try to make it better and try to get restitution for those individuals who weren't paid properly, because it was also their pay scale was different from men to women. Um, there's a lot of allegations in this, and we'll have a link to the actual. um, lawsuit itself, so that if you feel up to it, you can read through it. It's about 29 pages, and it's not a fun read. I mean,
It's, yeah,
there.
pretty rough.
What more can be said? I mean, there's been so much that's happened since then, and I do want to give a shout out to a group on Reddit that has been keeping it all compiled in this one Reddit thread, and we'll be posting that link too if you want to follow that link, because it goes chronologically,
I
but
was
they'll put the new stuff up at the top, and then it'll go chronologically down as far as how this all has been broken out.
I
But
was
there's
gonna
just
ask you
been
if
I've
they
been following some news, some gaming news sites on YouTube, and it's like almost a daily thing.
did they have the article that I sent you earlier?
Um, I think I put something in there about that.
Okay.
Uh,
I didn't know if it was in the Reddit thing or not.
n-
So wanted to make sure
I
you
haven't
had it.
checked today, so,
Okay.
but I do know that this is not, because what September was talking about is how the individuals in Ubisoft were uh, were standing in solidarity with the Activision Blizzard employees, the employees at Ubisoft, because last year there was this big scandal that came out with Ubisoft about the same kind of thing, and
Hmm.
then we had Riot Games come out in between these 2 points with their own, you know, horribleness towards their female employees, and marginalized employees, and you know, so this is systemic. This is not, one organization. This this is an entire group.
Industry.
Yeah, it's the industry. It's and I guess you can, part of it, and that's one of the things that is a struggle. Is that part of it? These gaming companies first start and everything, and it's Blizzard was a group of people that enjoyed gaming and enjoyed RTSs, and they came together and created their own RTSs, and then they just blew up and became super popular. But these were just a bunch of guys,
Hmm.
and so they started a company, and then they realized they were going to have to hire people. And whereas I don't know if this is like just because they were nerdy geeks or whatever the case may be, but if I was to start a company, one of the first things I would do is make sure that I had like an HR department that was autonomous from the everything else, but I would also make sure that I got the proper training to be a good head of a company, and hiring practices and everything else. It seems like that was not something that they thought of, and it was just like, oh, we can just do whatever. We're this
Well,
big company and everything else,
they
and
were really young when they
they
started
weren't a
it. They
big
didn't
company to
have
start out with. They had
business
the
savvy.
original Warcraft game, which was humans versus orcs, and then they came out with StarCraft, and then they went into dungeon diving with Diablo, and
And
it just kind of snowballed and kept snowballing and
can you
everything
hear me?
else, to where they became
Nope.
this huge company.
Well, it happened very quickly in a lot of ways. And when they started, they were actually literally working out of the college dorms. I mean, Bed and Broad met them delivering pizza to them, and eventually became part of the company.
Right.
So yeah, when they grew, they certainly didn't do a very good job at being aware of better, like anything like having a mission to have better business practices. Although they sure have talked a good game
Well,
that,
it's like their
people
statue
didn't
that's in
realize
front
they were
of
this bad. Yeah, the
Blizzard.
statue's a thing. That's really
Yeah.
horrifying.
for those that don't know, on Blizzard's campus, there's this statue, I think of Thrall. I think that's who it is. Um, and there are around the statue, it's this huge statue, and around the statue there are plates of, what they want to be, integrity, and I don't know them. I should have looked them up and put them up because it's just kind of funny. Because this is not. Here's the thing: Blizzard's had problems in the last while. The Blitzchung thing was a huge debacle for them and how they handled that, and the employees got upset about that, and they taped over. They put, cardboard over the founding these 8 founding pillars of, how they were going to be this exemplar company, and a lot of this has been the abuse allegations are years back, and it's, something that's still prevalent today. So it's a yesterday problem, and it's day problem, a present problem, and it's also a tomorrow problem because they need to fix this. And one of the ways you don't fix this is hire someone who used to work for the Bush administration as a torture apologist, when she worked for the Bush administration, and then have her come on and say, well, this didn't, and she's a woman, and have her come on after only working 4 months at the company and saying, oh, this has never happened to me. This has been in the past. So, obviously this is a mistake. This
Yeah,
is not something that,
Frances Townsend has to go. She responded by resigning her position for the women's group within Blizzard, but she still has a position there, and I don't think it's enough, especially she's in some kind of compliance role, and that's ridiculous. After
yes, she's,
writing a response letter that was basically gaslighting every woman who had been harassed, it was particularly disgusting. It was past the like responses have been insulting and certainly falling short from the company, and people are like, well, they got to use this legal speak and they can only say so much and they're holding the shareholders. Yeah, no, but you don't need to gaslight and like, well, I've never seen any of this and this is totally inaccurate. It never happened to me, so it must not happen to you. That's horrifying. And that they had a woman put her in front and she did that. It's like
mhm.
one of the most disgusting responses I saw. I just can't even handle it. Like, it's bad enough that women are so underrepresented in the company, and then the representative they have is, yeah, a torture apologist and doing that. Why did they hire her in the first place?
She
That's
was
really
a torture
weird.
apologist.
Right? That's so weird.
Here's the thing. They had to know this was going down because they let go of, I can't pronounce his name or remember his name. They let go of one of their executives back in 2020. They let him leave quietly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he was like, and then, but they didn't change the name. He has, I think, I know he had a character, and I think he had some
There's other
weapon
stuff
that was
that
named
was
after
named
him,
after him in the game, yeah.
and but they didn't make any of those changes until the lawsuit came out. And the lawsuit, there was 2 people's names that were named. He was one of them, and then J. Allen Brack was the other one that was named. He was not. J. Allen Brack was not considered an abuser. It's just that he kind of let things go. But this other individual, Alex was his first name. They named him specifically as being a problem, that, management would have a talk to with about, his how he interacted with female employees, female fans, and
Well, he's
everything
definitely
else.
one of the worst
And
offenders. He's the one that had the infamous Cosby suite
yes,
and would just like outright, seduce people in the company with ideas of getting promotion, and women just at BlizzCon as if, he could get him into special stuff. He really took advantage of his power and position in the most disgusting ways possible. And
well, it's like someone stepped up to him, and he's like, "Do you know who I am?" And I'm like, oh, that is someone who has never had to, deal with consequences. When
Mm-hmm.
someone says that, that's an immediate red flag to me. When somebody says, "Do you know who I am?" It's like, oh, we're going to pull that card. But yeah, he was horrible. And but they let him go in 2000. So they saw this coming, and that's why there's a lawsuit from the shareholders saying, "Hey, you knew this was going on because you can't keep an investigation like this secret inside Blizzard. It's not like they had. It's not like this was James Bond and they secretly put people in to gather this information. No, this was an investigation. They had to do it in a certain way, and Blizzard even acknowledged that they, in their first denial letter, stated that, that they knew about this investigation, but they didn't tell the shareholders about this investigation. And that's one of the things that they're supposed to do is tell the shareholders about this.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't. So now they're being sued for that. I'm going to say this: Fran needs to go. Bobby Kotick needs to go. Bobby Kotick has been a drag on that company for Activision, especially for a long time,
Yeah.
because because this is not the first time. I pointed this out in our notes that back in 2010, the Activision. This is before they had acquired Blizzard, but Activision and Bobby Kotick and them had to pay out a substantial fund of money because of harassment that they were a witness to and tried to hush up originally back in 2010. So this is not the first time that he has been a witness or been a problem for that company, and he's also considered one of the highest paid CEOs, overly paid CEOs in the country. Um, and there's been the problems with them making record profits, but then they would release 800 employees that knew that the axe was coming eventually, but they didn't know who was going to go. And so they've had a lot of problems in Activision and in Blizzard,
Well, those
especially when.
models of contract-based employment are unfortunate in this industry. It's very volatile, and it doesn't need to be. And all these games would be better. Releases would happen better if they would retain staff.
Yeah.
And fixing the culture is something that has to be done from the ground up so that you can retain staff. It's like there's a terrible catch 22 with staying, like, people dream about working there and then they can take advantage of them when they get them.
Well, there was this thing where people would, it was called the Blizzard tax, where people would get a downgrade in pay because they wanted to work at Blizzard. There was a couple of reports of employees saying that they, lost like 20 or 30% of their base pay when they went to Blizzard, but they wanted to so work at Blizzard. And one employee said it took them 7 years just to get back to what they were before they joined Blizzard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem. The other problem with those contracts that you brought up is that there's a forced arbitration clause in those contracts, and that's something that the employees want removed.
Yeah, that's
And
something a lot of companies right now, and it's, I think, unions trying to get in at places like Amazon. They haven't gotten in yet, but it's a lot of these companies are at least starting to look at ditching that practice.
for those that don't know, forced arbitration is basically where instead of being able to go to a governmental agency or sue outright for harassment or whatever, you have to go into forced arbitration, meaning that you have to discuss this basically with the people that you are having the problem with, and they,
Which really,
before, and their lawyers.
and I don't
And I'm not
know
even. Mhm.
how that's legal. Like, that seems like it should be part of the EEOC, like the equal opportunity laws.
Right.
They're really, because it's EEOC complaints, some of it, like unequal pay by gender and things that you should be able to just report the violations for. And so I don't know how it's legal to require that type of arbitration in those situations.
I don't either, but it seems that a lot of companies
Lots of
have
companies do.
have that.
Mm-hmm. So I do want to, before you move on, go back to the thing about the orc and warg statue. And it's
Right.
not Thrall, it's like an orc on a warg, generic thing. But a big thing that people keep pointing to, and people who visited the campus, and it's like an iconic thing. Like, let's meet at the statue, Let's meet at the orc statue. And one of the things in the design is they have this big, like, 8-pointed compass with what is supposed to be Blizzard's 8 core values.
Hmm.
And they are gameplay first, commit to quality, play nice, play fair, embrace your inner geek, every voice matters, learn and grow, think globally, and lead responsibly. So you can see where they have definitely fallen short. And what is supposed to be, like, that's their mission statement. These are supposed to be the core values of the company. And they've been heinously irresponsible, suppressing voices. And they have, I mean, we've had other incidences where they didn't pay a player in a competition because he said something political. That's not thinking globally. And they didn't learn and grow after that, obviously, because this horrible sexist shit has still been going on right in the office.
One of the things that just recently came out, and I didn't put it in the notes, is that they were having problems with their college league and the individuals who were in charge of their college gameplay, like heroes of the dorm kind of stuff. The head of that was problematic from the reporting. I didn't get the chance to read the entire article, so but that's coming out, and because here's the thing: when these, like with Ubisoft or Riot Games or Activision Blizzard, when these things come out, it gives I don't want it gives people courage, or it says, oh, good, there is something now, I can say what's been going on. And these stories, like I said, it's been 2 weeks of nothing but story after story about Blizzard and things that have been wrong both internally and externally, that they've been processing, that we're just now finding out about. And I'm not coming at this as someone who is ever against Blizzard. I was a fanboy. September can tell you that I was a lore nerd, and I absolutely loved WoW. It was my jam. I was part of Vanilla WoW back in the day. I got the collector sets for that. I got to collect, and I look at those, and they're beautiful. But I have 4 collector sets. I look at those, and I'm like, were they this bad the entire time? What did I put my heart and soul and my love into? That embracing your inner geek. My inner geek is going, did I help make this worse by being such a fan? You know, and that's the struggle, and that's one of the reasons I want to bring this up is like, what do you do? And we'll be discussing this next week in more broader terms, because next week we're going to cover ethical consumerism, and that's something. But this week I wanted to talk specifically about Activision Blizzard and about video games in here, because we all, a lot of us are geeks and nerds, and this is stuff we love. And how do we deal with that kind of fallout? I know that uh, I had stopped playing WoW for a while because I just couldn't afford it, but I was playing Hearthstone, and I deleted that off of my tablet and everything. And I know that you are leaving WoW.
I am. I handed over off my guild. I was going to disband it, but somebody who's still in wanted it. I don't begrudge people staying in, and if they improve their practices, I'll go back. I mean, this is a way for me to. I'm not going to feel bad about. They can't take the stories away from me, you know, and the time I had there. because like I mean I really feel like Azeroth was a place when I was raising my kids and they were little and I couldn't go out. It was where my husband and I would have date night. Like the kids go to bed and we can go to Azeroth. Um, and so it sucks to know that yeah, I was giving money to a place where they were treating their employees so poorly, but I didn't have any way of knowing that, so it's not
Hmm.
like I'm gonna beat myself up over that. But right now, I'm not gonna give them any more money until they clean up their act, and if they don't, then I'm not gonna give them my money. Just like I don't for Chick-fil-A, and I want them to. I'm only one person, but I mean there are a group of us. I've seen protests going on in the game, which is interesting to see, and it's a way to have your voice heard. Um, I did extend my subscription by a month by using in-game gold to buy a game token because for me I was also like, well, there you go. You also don't just keep my time that I spent earning that gold. I'm taking it all when I go. Um, and I'll just keep watching the stories, and if I have to never go back, I won't. Like, I'm never going back to Chick-fil-A either
Right.
since I learned about them, but that was something that when my kids were small and I didn't know they supported anti LGBT stuff, it was the only place in town I could take my little ones. And the playground was indoors, and in the North Carolina heat and terrible weather, they had an indoor playground. Everything was clean. The chicken was actually recognizable chicken. Like,
Yeah.
I loved them.
Uh,
But
I,
I will vote with my dollars. It's part of how I do. Like, I've
mhm.
never given J.K. Rowling another cent either.
Yeah.
But
And that's
I love that universe.
right.
I'm still going to
And,
wear my socks, my Ravenclaw socks.
uh, and that's something that we'll definitely hit on about ethical consumerism
Yeah.
next week. But uh, one of what I really wanted to focus on as far as like the personal what you know what do we we've both like backed away from Blizzard as a company, and again, don't go after the Blizzard employees who are still there. It's like I saw Christy Golden, who wrote several of their books, got got just dogpiled, and I'm like, she's a woman that works at Blizzard. What are you? Is like, yeah, let me harass a woman that works at Blizzard for
Yeah, that's going to make
because
your point. Like,
it's
how
it's
about
like,
be supportive of them so they can make the change from within? That's how it's got to happen.
yeah. Um, but that's one of the things, and it's like it's going to be interesting because like someone who I respect and admire, Matt Mercer, for D&D geeks, you know who he is. He is the voice of McCree in the in Overwatch, and there's because that the individual who the character is named after, he just got recently fired. And they would have to re-record all those lines, and it probably won't be Matt because he's making a stand against Blizzard as well.
Oh, have you
And
seen what they're doing with that? Because actually, one of my sons, Victor, came out the other day and we were having a discussion about what they're going to do about that character. Like, are they just going to entirely reskin him? Because that game has lore,
right,
and that character is a key component. And if they can't just take McCree out of the game, it would unbalance the whole thing. And they have enough balance troubles, but like I don't know how they're gonna do that.
they may have, because of like, it would be the best way I can consider it, because I don't know. I know there's lore. I don't know that much about Overwatch. I know three things. I know there's a giant gorilla who is actually cool. I know about May, who is just like cool, and then I know Tracer is bisexual. That because they
Yeah,
made that big deal about her. That's all
or
I
people
really
are
know
just
about
like
the lore.
Yeah, I
I'm
just
sorry.
don't know what they're gonna do and how they're gonna manage that. Because
Well, it
like
would be like them having
casters
to,
are just refusing to speak his name at this point.
right? They're calling him the cowboy, correct? Uh, but it'd be like for WoW, it'd be like them having to go and change everything about Thrall. And that's the way I understand about McCree is he's very integral into the history and the lore of it, and so it'd be like trying to have to go back
Well, I mean, you could
50.
for the lore, you could just kill him. That's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem would be how to remove the character without unbalancing the game. You would have to basically create another character that has the same abilities, and that's no small task.
No, it's not. Yeah, no, it would be very, very difficult. And that's, but that's one of those things is like you paint yourself into that kind of corner. Um, ethically and morally at this point, what should you do? You know, as a company, do because there've been, I know the lead designer for the original lead designer for Overwatch 2 left last year, and I'm starting to wonder why he left at this point.
Who?
And that's the thing. You get
Wait,
all these.
who?
I'm sorry.
You're wondering why who left?
Well, I'm wondering why, like the lead design, like the lead designer last year, the lead designer
Uh,
for Overwatch 2 left, but
oh,
then
okay.
you look at like the old guard that left, like the former CEO or Chris Mitson.
Metzen, although we know Metzen's story, I was that's why I was stepping in. I was wondering if you were talking about Metzen because like there are people we do and do not know why they left and how much this had to do with it. But I mean, Metzen basically had a nervous breakdown. He has openly discussed, and there have been things, whole podcast discussions about his mental health issues and why he stepped away from the industry entirely for a while. So that's not this.
Okay, though the pressure on this. Here's the thing: you can also just step back for a second, and go, well, maybe the pressure of having to deal with these kind of individuals this long could have been part of the problem. I know he also worked
Oh
himself.
yeah,
But I
but
also
they
know that he
some
worked.
of them just screwed up and should have stood up. I mean, Ben Brode has told really good stories about like people came to him with stuff and he wanted to report them but was asked not to. And Ghostcrawler had a lot of apologist stuff and oh I should have spoken up, I should have spoken up because he'd seen it, but he didn't. And then he was participating in the disgusting text messages that came out about the Cosby Street. So
Yeah.
how much do we believe any of them? Some of it we'll never know.
Yeah. Uh, so here's the big thing that I think we should understand is that we as consumers didn't know what was going on, and you brought this up, and it's like what I said. Part of me is like, God, I helped pay for this, but on the same thing, we shouldn't beat each other up about this or beat yourself up about it. We should also be very supportive of individuals who still want to stay. There's a channel that decided they're going to stay in. They're not going to be as deep into WoW, but they're going to stay and cover WoW stuff because, and this is a good point that they made, and I've heard this quite from several individuals is that if the good people leave, that all that leaves is the assholes of the world in WoW, and
Mm.
that or in Blizzard in general. And I don't want to be that individual, or I don't, I want to be a force of change, no matter how small it is, by holding them tasks because they're still taking my money. Therefore, I am still a consumer and I have a right to, at that point, say this needs to be better.
And there's
And
a
I also,
whole lot of gamers in that game because it's good for casual gamers as well as serious ones that don't even have any idea this is going on. They're not the kind of people who watch gaming news, especially because the game's been around so long. I mean, people my age and older than me that play, I think a lot of them just they don't stay in touch with the geek community. They don't read, gamer news and stuff like I do. And I mean, when I posted that I was disbanding the guild, one of my guildmates was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. What are you gonna do? Kick everybody out? Why would you do that? Like, I'll take it for I'll take it." And I was like, and then other people jumped in with like, "Yeah, they really ruined the game. It sucks right now. I don't blame you." And it's like, that's not why I'm leaving. And they just had no idea. I've run into
Yeah,
a
I
couple
mean,
people. I've seen it in trade chat. People are like, "What are you even talking about?" They don't even know what's happening.
yeah, you
It's
have to
not on
be connect.
CNN, right?
Well, yeah. Well, it may. I don't know if it did or didn't,
Maybe.
but
Probably
yeah,
not,
but
though.
it.
I mean, Fox isn't.
Let's not even. But yeah, so no, it probably didn't hit mainstream news. It may have had a blurb, and like but like people who
Yeah,
watch
like
like just the
first day,
nightly.
there was a lawsuit. And then
Yeah,
poof.
yeah, that's probably so they don't know the full details of the lawsuit or whatever, and so they probably so and I have no, if you stay and play the game, that's fine. If you don't, if you leave, that's fine. I support whatever decision you make. Again, and also in the employees, if they stay, I support you. If you leave, I support you. You have, these are personal decisions that you have to make, and it's not something that I am going to be upset about because Blizzard, because WoW is there are
Well, no,
people
some
that
of them should leave. Period.
well, you know what I mean. I mean the yeah, yes,
There
there
are
should be quite
particular
a
people mentioned in the lawsuit that need to leave, and what's her face? I don't want to say her name anymore. She needs to leave. Like, I'm not coming back unless those people leave.
I understand. Here's but that's I also don't the thing like with Ubisoft, and they're doing this now with Blizzard as well. And I apologize, my neighbor decided that they wanted to start mowing while we're recording, so I apologize for that. Um
That's okay. You already got to hear my cat and the door down the stairs while someone fed the cat. And it's real life, people.
but one of the things that I've lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
You were talking about
But
Ubisoft. I think you were going to talk about the movement
right.
in the industry toward unions that has been
Yeah,
happening.
well, what I was going to do first is like this is one of the things that right after Ubisoft all this came out, Ubisoft did their said that they were gave this presentation about Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and then the games journalists all shifted and started talking about the game versus the fact that they had all of this really horrible stuff that happened at Ubisoft. And Blizzard is Activision Blizzard is doing the same thing. People are trying to and I hear it, and it's like one of the videos there's several videos that we'll be posting about the subject initially, and one of them is the Jimquisition, James Stephanie Sterling. They've been pounding this drum for a while about the problems in the video game industry. And one of the things is that they get, and that I hear a lot that I'm seeing when I post stuff, or I'm looking on, is a lot of there are gamers out there is like, just shut up and play the games. We don't care what's going on. And the point is that you should, because games are a labor of love in some respect. I know it's still a job, but these are people crafting a story, a world, and if they are not in the best place mentally, then you're not going to get the best stories. And I know that comes off sounding selfish, and that's not my point. My point is like you should care about the people that make the products that you consume because it's important. And this is an artistic field. Yeah, there's a lot of technical stuff, the QA people and things like that, but they all have a passion for video games. And when you kill that passion, when you because you have a shitty work environment, or the higher ups do horrible things that we didn't even touch on exact, details because I really don't want to say them because they just make me physically ill.
Mm-hmm.
When they have to deal with this kind of stuff, that labor of love just falls apart because, again, this is a passion. This is like I said, there are people that took significant pay cuts because they wanted to work at Blizzard because Blizzard at the time was this supposed good company to work for. And then
I've
they
tried
get
to
into,
talk my husband into it in the past because when you play WoW and stuff sometimes pops up like, hey, we're looking for people. And it's like, man. And then, we looked at their pay honestly, and to live in that area, I was like, that's kind of maybe not enough. I mean, it's not really the kind of programming he does, but he's also capable of learning it.
right.
And good God, I can't imagine what would happen if he'd have seen something like that in his workplace.
Yeah. I I think your husband may have gotten more than a little upset, to say the least. And I've never seen Rob upset, but I can imagine that it would probably make him very angry. And he would probably say something. And yeah, you have to understand that the campus
Well,
is
if he
in
didn't,
Irvine.
I would bury him. So there's that.
Yeah.
Like, you saw what?
It's,
I'd be
yeah.
marching on the campus.
It's like, no, no. I can visually picture you storming on the campus and Rob standing in front of you and you're just pushing him along. I'm just
Oh, I'd probably make some really good cosplay. I'd Draka or something. Like,
that's yeah,
or just put
but
the white
yeah.
stripe back in and go full Jaina.
Oh, that's my favorite character.
So I'll give your ass an actual blizzard.
Yeah. I do love myself some Jaina. So, but yeah, and it's like, and that's the thing. This is one specific thing I want to touch on because this made me so angry. Uh, and the Geek Grills discussed this briefly, but it was the young lady, and it was 2010. The young lady at a BlizzCon came up as like, you've got these strong female characters, but it would be kind of nice if they were like dressed completely. Basically, she was saying she didn't want to. She was tired of seeing these characters come out of a Victoria's Secret catalog.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know who it was, but the first person that says, well, what kind of catalog would you like to see him come out of? And then they just demoralize this young lady. I mean, you could see her face as she's like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to get I'm not going to get a good answer from these guys," kind of thing. Because it was all guys on the panel,
Of
and
course it was.
it was just horrible. And that was 2010, and that just at that point when I saw that, because I didn't know it about it then, when I saw it now, I'm just going, oh, that made me so angry. How could you do that? And I'm a guy, and I'm just watching. It's like no one on that panel spoke. I was like, hey, what the hell? Why are you guys doing
But
this?
what happened was the kind of thing that Jules Scott talked about when she talked to Scott Johnson is it got laughed at, and not laughed
Hmm.
at, but like laughed off. Like, I think millions of people watched that panel, right? I don't.
Right.
I usually watch the Q&A. I might have watched it, but I didn't remember it. Um, I might have missed that year. I think I missed that year. I wasn't doing virtual yet. I don't think they were doing virtual back then. But anyway, so yeah, then I wouldn't have seen it. But like seeing it in the light we have now because the lawsuit is different. But in the normal gaming communities as a female, that's the kind of, like, if you ask that, people would joke about it. Like, yeah, exactly. Like, oh, what kind of catalog would you like to see them out of? And, if she were quicker thinking, she would have said, LL Bean, Dick, something like that had a point to it. But instead, as a woman, you are trained from a very, very young age, you're trained from a little girl to laugh that kind of thing off. When they say something hurtful or demeaning, or, a man's like, oh, you're overreacting, which was how she was being treated. And she was asking a legitimate question about she obviously cared about. She was at fucking BlizzCon. And all you do, you laugh because you're trained to not escalate the situation because it's dangerous. Some guy comes at you, you go, ah, ha, ha, and you act cute for a minute so that you can get away.
Right.
I mean, to me, it was
there
a
was,
visible example of that happening. Everyone went into their defensive mode and, like, ha ha ha, laughed about it, move along. People
I
cheered her
mean,
when she asked the question, and then some people booed, and
right,
then the panel made fun of her.
right.
And she just kind of got really meek and backed away.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that, and it's just like, because and if you look at the character, I'll give you a perfect example. Look at the character, we talked about it. They looked at the character models of Jaina when she was first in the game versus the last, which was Battle for Azeroth, and how her costuming changed completely, and how she was much more, she was less sexualized in the later. She had her costume, and B of A is my favorite female costume ever. It is just absolutely gorgeous. It is feminine but strong, and that's all. I know I can
Yeah,
say this
oddly,
that
while this was going on, they've gotten better at that in the last few years.
right. And it was just a beautiful costume, and seeing people cosplay that costume, it is absolutely gorgeous. And it's like, one of the things that they
But
did
just
right
a
is
few
they still made it
expansions ago, it was
feminine, but
still really, really not practical for battle.
no, Evan,
And I mean,
no,
I
it's
had a
not.
character, I remember getting a pair of pants on my Night Elf Druid, and, I'm running along, it's kind of like third person the way I play, and then I was like, what the hell? And I zoomed in, and the way the design and the leather tooling on her butt was like literally heart shaped. Like, really? Really?
Yeah, they had yeah, I can understand that. Yeah,
But I know a lot of
that's
guys
what
who play female characters because they would rather watch the girls bounce around ahead of them than a dude.
that's
I don't know.
not why I play female
Is
characters,
that,
but that's a whole nother story.
I mean, is
Um,
that in itself harmful? I mean, that's just human.
yeah,
But catering to it is not giving an option to not is where you look at that kind of thing can bolster a harmful environment.
yeah. The
Oh,
big takeaway
and speaking of which, I do
before,
want to tell you this because I know we're wrapping up. Um,
yeah,
Going back and playing WoW in the last few days I have here, I went back to do some nostalgic things. And so yeah, fishing because I like to do that. I played some pet battles, and I went to Dalaran. It's like my favorite place, like best city design ever. I went looking for like the place we used to have our little guild Christmas parties and trade presents and stuff like that. And then I decided to use the Relic of Argus. So the Relic of Argus is this funny toy item, and it takes you wherever you want to go as long as you don't care. And you hit it, and it randomly teleports you somewhere. So I used it once, and it put me in Skullman's, which was okay. There's nothing to do there. That was boring. The next time I used it, it took me to Moonglade. So, any of you who are not familiar with WoW, Moonglade is a place known for It was an RP server early on that's named after a place in Azeroth where there's a lot of people do pretend sexy time and that kind of thing. Weird, saucy stuff. It teleported me to Moonglade, but it doesn't give you put you in like a flight point or somewhere normal. It put me in a room with another night elf with a bearskin rug, like in a bedroom with candles and a
Hey, that
bearskin rug and a dude. That's where it randomly transported me. And you know, random isn't random in these cases. Somebody picked that.
right.
Ew.
Yeah.
They might want to fix that too.
They may want to fix that, yes. Um, well, it's also it's like I hear horrible stories about going into Elwyn Forest, and that tavern there is just, yeah, I hear, but they may need to do some cleaning of the players as well, because I think some of that seeps into the player base when you have that kind of
I think people can have, you know, their places and their RP and their groups and play however they want to play. I'm all for that. That's fine. But when it's seeping into the game and the communities in a way that people can't protect themselves, that's a different thing.
yes, I agree. My big takeaway from all of this is that don't, no matter what the fandom is or whatever, if the heroes have been around long enough to become the villains, it's not your fault. That's one of the things. And the other thing is I just want to touch on with, you posted this article to me, and if you'll be so kind to put it on the notes, that'd be great. But
Mm-hmm.
it's basically Ubisoft's employees are like, they're tired of empty promises, and they have full support of they're giving full support to Blizzard employees. One of the things now that's going to be interesting to see in the next year or two is whether or not we get unions, gaming union in the United States, and a gaming union in other countries. I think at this point they need to have this. This has been something that's been discussed in the past, but it's never been actionable. I think with Blizzard, Activision Blizzard, who is one of the biggest companies having this kind of problems, they may end up looking at starting or joining a union and getting a union involved. And if Activision Blizzard falls to a union, a lot of these other companies like EA and Ubisoft and stuff like that will also have that same thing happen, I do believe.
Falls to a union? Boy, I wouldn't put it
Well,
that way.
that was a bad, yeah, because,
Unionizes.
yeah,
If their
decides to
employees
unionize.
unionize. Yeah.
But
I
what
want
I
to see
mean
it.
by,
I want to see this change. Just like I was super excited when the Campaign Workers Guild became a thing, and I think that going forward, normalizing it in politics so that these, you know, interns and whatever, you know, young political activists and stuff are treated fairly in their employment. It's putting your money where your mouth is. If you're going to claim
right,
yourself as an industry standard in gaming and have great practices and fair pay and all the voices are heard, then let your employees unionize. Because that's how their voices can get heard. That's how they elect representation among themselves instead of relying on internal works like HR, which are paid by the company.
right.
There's a lot of reasons that system does not work.
Yeah. And I think this would also help with the non-abuse problems that gaming companies have, like crunch and stuff like that. I think they need to have that kind of representation, because it's the gaming companies have more problems than just what this nightmare, when it comes to how they treat their employees. And I think with all of this happening, I honestly think that it's time that a union happens. I've It's been past that time. But
Hmm.
I think this would have, if they had a union, I don't think they would have had nearly the problems they had, because there would be a union rep saying, "Hey, why is there only 20% of your employees female, and you do not pay them enough?"
Yeah, the pay discrepancies would have been caught. And I mean, that's just so unconscionable to begin with. That's another thing I want to see before I come back. They need to make reparations to everyone that they underpaid.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how you make reparations for the women that like you'd kick out of a breastfeeding room,
They
but
didn't have locks on the doors. Oh my
mhm.
God, really? Yeah, that was a big one. Uh, was they were that women would be kicked out of breastfeeding rooms so that the men could have a meeting in there. That's not a meeting room. That is a breastfeed. Oh
And
my
this
God,
is a,
that
I
mean,
mean, this is culturally a problem, and we expected better of their culture, right?
yes.
Like in town, there's how many places have you ever been that even has a room for that, right? Um, I've been asked in a restaurant to take my baby to the bathroom to continue feeding. I'm like, no.
You?
Well, that customer over there is upset. Well, tell her to go eat in the bathroom. What the hell?
Yeah. This is
But in
natural.
your
It's
place of
okay. I think.
employment, this is, you know, part of what should be a protected, it's a protected legally practice. They're supposed to give you space and time for that.
Well, and that was the other thing is that one of the things that they talked about was is that how employees would not be put up for promotions or whatever to female employees because they were afraid that they would get pregnant and enjoy being a mom more, and then what would
Oh
happen
yeah,
to
what
the
if you
that
decide to have a
position?
baby? That's a huge societal problem.
Hmm.
That's yeah, that's been going on for hundreds of years.
So yeah, so there's a lot of stuff that they need to clean up, and hopefully Blizzard can, and we can hold them accountable either even if we're not inside making payments to them, that we can still hold them accountable and be like, hey, look, you're leaving money on the table because you decide that you don't want to fix yourselves,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of people that are stepping away, you know, and we'll have to see
Well,
what
that and
happens.
the influx of workers, for instance, that have just wanted to go there and dreamed about going there, they're losing that too.
Yeah, which would be really good, really big, uh maybe a new game or a better storyline or whatever. So yeah, you're missing out on some creative people who won't show up at your job if you're scum.
Hmm.
And so that's this topic for this week. Next week, like I said, we'll be discussing in more broader terms ethical consumerism and what it means and everything else. And we'll have a back to our normal format with the carrot and stick and all of that. So, any parting words before we end the show?
No, I'm good.
All right. The and
Oh, get vaccinated.
yes, get vaccinated. Jeez. All right.
Come on, man.
Yeah,
Renfest is coming. Get vaccinated.
maybe. I'm a little concerned at this point.
It's coming.
Um,
Stop. I just got my third.
yeah, I know you just got the booster. So,
Hmm.
yeah. All right. So, with that being said, thank you again for joining us here at Heresy and Hearsay. I'm Raymond Barney, and you can follow me on Twitter at SethRothII. You can find the show on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and at podcast catchers, as well as our website. Just Google us. Don't forget our Patreon page, where $2 a month can keep this show going.
And I'm September. You can follow me on Twitch and Twitter at 9 of 12. And you can hear me on the Geek Grills podcast. Thanks for listening today, and bless your hearts. And you wanted to raid somebody. Oh,
Mm.
wait.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
There. Now you wanted to raid somebody.
Yes. If
There's
they're
only
still
like,
on, go ahead and raid Hal Sparks.
yep. Well, there's like one person viewing.
Eh.
And I can't type, but there's that. I cannot raid that
Okay.
channel. We can't raid that channel.
Okay. All
They
right.
must
Then
have it
don't
turned
worry
off.
about it.
A lot of places don't let anyone raid unless like they're following
They're
back
following.
or know who you are,
Yeah.
or you're in their group, or you're subbed or whatever.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. End stream.